Hello and welcome to another episode of The Warrior Artist, a podcast full of practical advice, tips and inspiration to help you on your creative journey. My name is Éadaoin Glynn, and today I'm delighted to be joined by glass artist and photographer Barbara Kenneally. Barbara studied biochemistry and worked as a medical scientist. It was only when she retired that she decided to study art. Following her BA in art, ceramics, glass and textiles from the Crawford College of Art in Cork, she has developed her own unique style of beautiful abstract glass sculptures and photography. Barbara's work is very much inspired by the beautiful Allihies area in the Beara Peninsula in West Cork, and in particular the copper mines, the old copper mines in the Allihies. Barbara starts the journey of her abstract glass sculptures with a rock found at the mines, and she uses this as a mold for her glass, and she's used this as a blank canvas. And the colours, her work is very luminous. It almost reminds me of a geological fossil or something trapped in glass. And the colours she uses, if I could describe them, there are lots of blues and greens and ambers and oranges, and they're inspired by the natural mineral deposits in the area. Barbara's work with glass and her photography allows her to explore both the surface and what is beneath the surface. I met Barbara at a group exhibition we were both in Crane Visual in Cork City, and I absolutely loved her work, and I was fascinated to hear of her creative journey from science to art. Barbara, hello and welcome to the Warrior Artist podcast.
Hi, Éadaoin.
Thanks for agreeing to be here.
Well, thanks for asking me. So you've said a lot. You've said a lot there. So I'll be filling in on what you've just said. So.
Oh, your story is so fascinating. And what I want to ask you first is, did you ever consider studying art instead of science? And was it something you were always drawn to, and why you decided to go to art college when you retired?
Well, I was always interested in science, not so much art. But with my career in science, I found that in the evenings from September to Christmas, usually I did kind of art things like stained glass photography, ceramics, jewelry making. I did felt making. So I was always drawn to creative things in the evenings. So that
so you would work as a scientist during the day, and then in the evening you'd pursue these creative passions.
Exactly, yeah. So it wasn't until after I retired and I went to Coláiste Stíochán Naofa PLC College that I really found my love of art. And I discovered my real love of the Beara Peninsula, because on day one of the tutors said, "And what's your year going to be about? What's your theme for the year?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "Do you have something or some place that you love?" I said, "Well, I do, yes." And so I suppose realized my passion for the Beara Peninsula and for Allihies in particular, where I used to go. I've been going since I was a very small child. So the stories in and around the mines, because my dad was friendly with somebody in the village who used to bring us in underground. So we were able to see all these colours underground when we were small. And also, I think one of the big things that I remember, when the mine shaft is flooded with water, the surface looks like glass. And so one particular mine shaft has a ladder going to the surface. And if you weren't careful, you wouldn't see that the thing was flooded because of the water looking like glass. So it has a shiny surface, but you're looking down into it. So that stuck with me. Also, when I was working in biochemistry, I did a master's, and for that master's, I wanted to show that what used to be called normal ranges were correct for people in Cork. They're now called reference ranges. And I found it very, very difficult to get a population of people who are all normal. People who think they might be normal may not be when you actually analyze what's going on inside. So this is where I like to have a surface and a subsurface in my work. You know, things are going on underneath, so that that kind of marries.
So you're drawing an analogy between these ranges you did as a scientist and the surface and subsurface.
Yes, surface and
so it's
subsurface.
Like a scientific approach to way of looking.
Yes, but again, it's looking beneath the surface, and sometimes there are absolutely fantastic things. Sometimes there aren't. The beauty of working in glass is if I'm not happy with what comes out of the kiln, I can reuse the glass. So that's my
So you'd melt it down and start again, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I can do that.
Okay, so it's totally recyclable. And that image you gave, were you saying that you actually went down the mine shafts, or you looked at them when you were a child?
We would have been able to, not going down the shafts, but going into the mines.
Into the mines.
Going into the mines is more or less what an adit is. An adit is a vertical part of the mines, whereas a shaft, no, an adit is horizontal, and a shaft is vertical, yeah. So that
and that image you gave of the flooded mine, like a piece of glass, like that's an incredible image. And I can, having seen your work, I can see how that carries through. And can I ask you, can you tell us about your time in art college? You decided to go to art college. What was that like, going as a retired person, starting a degree in art?
When I went to Stefan Nefa, that was a very big challenge for me. I did a 1-year course there because everybody there had come, well, most of them had come from school. So they had 6 years of history of art and learning how to paint and draw. So that was a bit of a challenge, but the staff were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So towards the end of the year, they were suggesting that I would go to Crawford Art College. And I said, no, I'm not an artist. So they said, you should try. So I did. I put together a portfolio and went through the CAO and did very well in my application. So as a result, I was given a place in second year in ceramics, textiles and glass. And again, when I went there was a slight challenge there because everybody had been in the college for a year. So again, I was slightly challenged. Well, not slightly challenged, more than slightly, I'd say. But again, the staff were fantastic. So yeah, it all worked out well. So yeah, so that.
And were you always drawn to glass when you were studying there, or did you explore other areas?
Towards the end of my year in Stefan Nefa, there was talk about bringing in some glass. So I was very excited about that. Yes, I've always liked glass. I have always liked glass. And once I started to do it in Crawford, I really loved it. So that I was very lucky with the tutor there, Debbie Dawson. And so it was the start of something new for me, which was great. So.
And you described how, with glass that you can reuse it. And I've never worked with glass. I think your work is stunning and so beautiful. And can you just describe, you talked about, you wrote about finding a rock and that's your mold. Can you tell us a little bit about your process, about how you make a piece of glass sculpture?
It is actually a very long process. When I find a rock that I like, the form, I take it and I use a type of silicone over to make a mold. And then I have, so I have a positive rock, I put over the silicone, then I take out the rock. So I've got a negative form. So into the negative form, I would put a special type of alginate, like a sort of a jelly. And when that's set, I can take that out. So then I have a positive of the rock. And then I can put plaster mixed with silica and some china clay. And when I make this mixture, I put it around the alginate. And when that's hard, I can take out the alginate. So then I've got the negative of the rock in that. And into that, I can put in the glass and put that in the kiln. So that's the first part, which all takes a long time because drying can take more than a week sometimes of the mold. So then I can put the mold and the glass into the kiln. That takes best part of a week as well, depending on the size. And when it comes out, the way that I put in the mold, I have an area, that's the area that I want to polish. I don't necessarily bother so much about the rest of the sculpture. I just want one surface area that people can look into it. But yes, getting that flat and polished can sometimes take a very long time. So the whole process is actually very long. So, and then
how long is it, Barbara, roughly, for one piece? How many?
I would do only a few per year. It would take a few months. And the latest piece, which is here behind me, I would have started, I think I started in April of last year. But I had health issues last year, so I didn't do very much. So I'm hoping to do more this year. So I have two smaller ones now on the go for polishing, grinding and polishing.
I was going to ask you that. Do you work at one at a time, or would you have several pieces?
Well, at the moment
at the same time?
I have 2 medium and I have 13 small that I'm kind of alternating because it's a long process. So sometimes I get help. There is one person in Cork who gave me great help when I came out first. When there were 2 of us got a residency in the glass studio in Crawford when we graduated, Hazel Hutton and myself. And at the end of the year, we were saying to ourselves, we should exhibit what we've done, you know, we should, yeah. So we went down to what's now the Lavitt Gallery, and we were told that there was a space in 2 weeks' time. So we kind of got, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And for me, it was really, oh my God, because my sculptures are not gallery standard when they come out. So I had a lot of finished work, but it wasn't polished. But I got in contact.
So when you say not gallery standard, you mean it was you didn't have the smooth part done?
Exactly.
What do you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. They were rough.
Okay.
So I got in contact with the glass artist Owen Turner, whose wife Laurie Mullins is a painter, and so I told them the story, and they were fantastic help to me. So as a result of that, having such a short period of time to get some ready, I learned an awful lot, especially from Owen, and I was able to use their studio for a while before I got my own setup. Even when I ordered a kiln, it was in a little corner of their studio for a while. So I have to say a big thank you for the mentorship that I got from Owen and Lorraine. So, but yeah, now I'm at home. So I mean, when I say at home, my studio is attached to the house. It used to be the garage, so it's not very big. So I don't have very big sculptures. Because
they're small.
Yeah, they're relatively small because when I make the molds and put the glass in, they can be quite heavy. So that the mold can be 4 to 5 kgs, and then the glass will be the same. So that's why. Plus, my kiln isn't very big. So as a result,
you're working with kind of handheld pieces that you can manage on your own, basically.
Yes, because especially when I'm polishing, I like to be able to move the piece myself. But Mick Wilkins, a sculptor down in Kenneally, has been great at designing things to raise the glass so that people can see it better. So
yeah, I noticed that. So in the exhibition that I saw with Barbara, there were these tiny little tables, and then is the piece sort of fused onto the top of the table. It's glass surface and it's got little metal legs.
That's right. And Mick would have designed, each one is individually designed for that piece.
Wow.
So Mick would have designed them, and then I would have got some what's called float glass on top of them. And then George Duggan, another guy who's been very helpful, he's from Cork Crystal. He would have UV'd the piece using a UV lamp and UV glue. He would have glued the sculpture to the flat glass, so that in this way,
it's very clever and very unique, and it does raise. So you can imagine this sort of an abstract glass, which is almost like from a piece of a mold of a stone, and it's got a rough part to it, and then there's a smooth surface, and then you can see inside the internal part of the glass all these colors, and then it's raised on this very elegant form, like a little mini table, a mini plinth. And does that also help with them? I suppose glass is so fragile that if someone was to purchase it or to hang it or to exhibit it means they can lift it by the plinth rather than the.
We are all living and learning, and I was commissioned to make a piece, and shortly after the piece was placed in its new location, it was dropped and the glass broke. No. So that as a result of that, we've learned, those of us who were involved in trying to put them on plinths, that the UV glue helps enormously, so that the
with the stability. Oh my God, that must have been heartbreaking.
It was, but I was able to fix it. But it just isn't the same shape because a piece broke off. So that glass is very fragile, so we have to be very careful. Yeah. So, and
yeah, I'm going to ask you about packaging. Like, I know you've got collectors all over the world. Like, packaging and shipping glass pieces must be so much packaging involved.
Yeah. It is vital that the especially with glass, that it's very, very well packed. So yeah. So
do you make special cases or
So far I haven't done so, but there's a big, I suppose, opportunity for me coming up in October. So I'm going to perhaps have a special box made for this particular piece. So again, I'm going to learn more, but I have until October to sort that one out.
So packaging. And tell us about, you talked about your studio. It's attached to your home and it's got a small kiln. Can you describe your studio for us?
If you can imagine a 1930s house, semi-detached house with a garage beside it, that's all it is. It's not very big. It's not.
And you were in the converted garage then?
Yeah, in the converted garage. Yeah, I have water supply for my flatbed grinder. So that's what that would be grinding. But it needs water in and water out. So and I have a table which I would do most of my moor making on. So and then I have industrial shelving that all the glass is held in. So yeah.
And the colours are so beautiful in your work. And I'm just imagining that your background is science and as a biochemist, it must help you, I suppose, that you're using like chemicals and ingredients to make these colours. Is there like part of the science part of you can help the creative side of you?
I'd say yes. I would say yes. Yeah. So that there would be sometimes, for example, that I would use copper oxide or copper carbonate in my molds because I know what's going to. Well, you're never certain, but they can form a reaction in the glass. And sometimes those bubbles, I actually capture them with a macro lens and they can create what look like paintings, but they are actually in reality, things that are happening within my own glass. So this is where it's sort of cyclical. I take photographs at the mines and then I go and make the glass sculpture. And then sometimes on a certain night, or quite often I bring them to Allihies and take a photograph with a macro lens down there. And I would take lots of photographs, but some of them I feel I suppose more strongly than others, and I will have them as prints so that it's a circle.
And they're beautiful, and it's so interesting because you talk about the surface and beneath the surface, and these photographs, they go right into the center of the pieces, right. And they capture all these beautiful bubbles and colors within the glass, and they're stunning. And the exhibition I saw, you had both these beautiful glass pieces and these little plinths and the photographs. And do you normally? Is that the way you'd like to exhibit, to show both simultaneously?
Yes. When it came to my final year in Crawford, and we were trying to decide. Well, I was doing both photography and glass all the way through, but my glass tutor Debbie Dawson was saying that the pieces of glass were really quite small in the scale of a gallery, so that by having some of my prints. Large scale prints, larger than the ones that are in Ferkagrein at the moment, to kind of ground the glass, so that you have both, so that they complement each other. I also at the Dewey show had a film. There was a series of photographs I had taken of the mines, shown into a clear rock that I had made. So I had a booth where you could look in and you're looking at one clear rock, but the colors within it were changing all the time because I had a tape showing my images through the glass. So that was like, again, joining everything up. So that worked very well at that time. So it's
so the images were being shown through the glass.
Yes,
and
so
that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so it looked like the clear glass was a certain color, and then gradually it changed because I had changed the slide that was showing through it, so that they were being projected through this one clear glass sculpture. So that I think that worked well. It's just another angle.
Can you tell us about your studio practice? I talked about a cyclical nature, that sometimes you might be in Allihies researching and photographing there. Like, how often do you get to the studio, and when you're in the studio, how long are your sessions working with glass?
It's incredibly variable. It depends on what's going on the rest of my life, to be honest. Yeah. So I spend as much time as I can, but there are other things happening as well, so that it's not always I'm not regimented, in other words. Yeah. So
no.
Yeah.
When you get into the studio, how long would it be? Like your ideal session?
Oh, I keep going. I really would keep going. I like to listen to music and to work away, so that it's just if something happens or somebody calls or something that I need to get out. I love being there. So I love what I'm doing. I love it. So that it's great to be able to do it at this stage of my life. So it's I just feel very lucky.
Yeah, and I was curious to know, yeah, you listen to music. What kind of music would you listen to, Barbara?
Oh, it's incredibly eclectic. Absolutely. So, and I would sometimes listen to, listen back on, we'd say BBC Radio 6 to Cerys Matthews on Sunday mornings, or John Kelly. But it's very, very variable. Sometimes I go back to the, I grew up in the 60s, 70s, so that it's very eclectic.
Music helps, definitely. And I'm curious to know, so with your glass pieces, you choose this beautiful form and then you make it and you have all these shapes, and you have a knowledge of chemicals, but are there happy accidents that happen, or can you control the process, or do you allow those accidents to take shape with the color within the...
Yes, I could. It's very difficult to predict what exactly is going to happen. So quite often, when I make a mold, I would make 2 of them, because I know from my experience that one might be awful. I mean, not so much awful as that I don't like it as much as the other. So, so quite often I would make 2 of the same. But if started as a rock, I would make 2 of those, and then pick which one I like. And when it's finished, I would bring it to Roland Pashoff. He's a photographer in Cove who is fantastic. So I know when I'm on my road, when I'm on the road to Cove, that I'm happy with what I have in my box, because I don't have things that I don't like photographed. So I just put them in a box. I might use it later on, or break it up and use a small piece or something. But
that's so great the way you can reuse the material. I can ask you as well, I was curious to know, if you have a beautiful shape or a form or a rock you really love, would you create multiple pieces of that, or is it always just the one of each one, or the 2 that you choose the one from?
2, generally just 2.
Okay.
There was a time when I was a student and when I was doing a residency that I would have done more than 2, changing the colors within, but now I would generally only do 2, so that and generally kind of down the amber road and the blue-green road, so that but again, that might change tomorrow.
Well, the colors are stunning. They're really, really unusual. And how do you balance the time? Like you talked about life and challenges. Like, how do you balance, and all the jobs you do as an artist? Like you're talking about getting it photographed, and the physicality of making pieces and getting prints and UV glue and packaging. How do you try and balance all those jobs and juggle all those different jobs being an artist?
This is why I don't make all that many pieces. Each one takes a long time, but I'm lucky. I'm generally not under much pressure, so that I can toddle along at my own pace usually. So it's this year has started very busy, to be honest. So
yeah, it's January, end of January as we're speaking, and we've already had an exhibition, and you've got upcoming work as well.
That's right.
And what would be your least favorite job as an artist?
Oh, writing my CV and doing submissions like that, and it's just
the bios and the statements and
exactly, yeah. And who
poor Barbara, I asked for one of those for my research.
I know, and I had to redo it because the format was different. But and then I found that everything was pushed out of line. So anyway, those kind of things, I know they have to be done, but that would probably be my least favorite. I prefer it to be done in the studio. So
creating. And you talked about getting your work photographed. I can imagine that is because of the light and the colors, like that must be very challenging. So you don't I thought maybe you photographed your own work when you take photographs.
No, I don't. No? I go and get the professional photographer who has all the gear in his studio, because I could take photographs, but I can't. I'm not as good as he is. He's
I'm sure the lighting, and because of all those different surfaces on it, and each piece being so unique, must be very. When you find somebody like that, it must be. And it's so important for all your submissions and stuff to have a beautiful photograph of your work.
Yeah, it is very important, and I say, I find Roland fantastic. But when I take my own macro, that's a different scenario. That's not this for me to photograph my piece. If I was to take that photograph there, it just wouldn't look the same. It wouldn't look as good as what Roland can do with his lighting, with his experience. So that's why I'm
absolutely.
So that there are many people.
And do you ever procrastinate, Barbara? Or you sound like you really love working with glass, but do you ever find it hard to get in there and start in the studio?
No, not really. No. If I was going to find it hard, I just wouldn't go. So, I I really enjoy it. So that's so it's.
And you talked about doing proposals and writing. Like, how do you handle the rejection that comes with the process of going for open calls? Or
every time I push out or enter an open call, I say I prepare myself for not to be accepted, so that it's just great when I am. So, but I'm lucky I'm at the stage that I'm at, that it isn't as vital as it would be perhaps to somebody a lot younger, putting in proposals. I'm delighted if I'm accepted, but if I'm not, I don't get upset really, so it's.
So your mindset is almost like expecting it not to happen, and then it's a bonus if you get in, basically.
Yes, because I'm now used to rejection as well, so that that's good for me.
It's easy part of it. And what was the best? You talked about some great mentors and people who've worked with you and given you advice and support starting off. What's the best advice that you can think of that somebody gave you, a mentor or a teacher?
I suppose believe in yourself is probably the biggest thing, really. That if you should, if there is nobody else like you, so believe in yourself, and that's it, I think, really. Yeah.
And what would advice, you talked about somebody starting off now and at the beginning of their career, what is there any advice you'd give to anybody listening who might be an emerging artist, or somebody who's thinking about becoming an artist, maybe somebody who's thinking about exploring glass or sculpture like you? Is there any advice you'd give them?
Well, I found the people who helped me in Stíofáin Naofa to be invaluable, really, because I certainly wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone there. The fact that was the first step that gave me the courage to go to art college, and so that's kind of shaped the way things have gone for me now. So the help that I got from the staff in Stíofáin Naofa are really the reason why I am here. So if anybody's thinking, it doesn't really matter what age you are, that if you're thinking, just to look into the courses that are available in PLCs. And then
just explain to anybody who doesn't know. So Coláiste Stíofáin Naofa, it's a PLC, a post-leaving cert course that people can do before they go to. So, and what was the course that you did actually there?
It was art, craft, and design. So we had 13 modules. So we learned an awful lot in 13 modules. And as I say, as a result, I got the place in second year in Crawford. So that was fantastic.
Fantastic. It was a real launching pad for you. So to look at courses. And are there any books you'd recommend, or any books that you love that you draw inspiration from?
Well, again, there's a kind of an eclectic selection, but one artist that I really like is an American. Well, she was born in Canada, Agnes Martin. I just really love her work. So she's not spoken about that much, but I really love her work. But that's perhaps having come from background of science as well, I like her grids. But she's kind of gentle, but also she's strong. So I like her work.
I was curious to know as well, when you make your pieces and there are these rough shapes, how do you decide you smooth one surface that we can look through? That's almost like, it always reminds me of a stone that's cut in half. Like sometimes you find a stone that's cut, like it's fallen in half and you can see into it. How would you decide which surface you're going to polish?
I decide that before I start, so that I put the side that's going to be the one I want to look into. I put that up on the bottom and then put the mold material over it, so that that's an open space, so that will always be the flat surface at the end for me. So the rest would be rocky shapes, basically. So
that's interesting. And you decide that by looking at the form of the rock that you find?
Yeah. When I'm looking at rocks in the mines, I will look for a surface that I can have flat. It doesn't necessarily have to be completely flat when I find it, but I will know that that's the side that I'm going to be looking into from, so that I would spot that straight away. Yes,
that's so interesting. And do you keep all these rocks that you discover, or do you...
I do, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I have quite a collection here in Cork.
So where do you
Some
line them up in your studio or outside, or where are
They're
they?
outside now. They're outside. The colors are changing in them as well, which is another feature of my photographs at the mines. I'm watching the colors changing. Since I started in Éadaoin Glynn, which was 2012, I've been watching one particular big rock, which was fantastically blue back then, and it's now completely green. So that this is nature working on the copper in the rocks, that, you know, so that I'm watching these colors changing. And quite often when I'm going to start on a piece, I'll take a fresh photograph that I've taken. For example, in the new year, I took some photographs at mines, and I will use those photographs in my next sculptures. I will use those colors in my next
The colors.
Yeah, I will use the colors so I quite often print off some of the photographs that I've taken and use those colors in my next sculptures, because the colors are changing. In reality, my colors will change a little bit in the sculptures going forward, because the rocks are changing as well. But I did
That's a great process. So you start with photographs, and then that's your palette for the next pieces. And yes. So then you know what chemicals to use to create these colors, even if there's all these accidents within it, or is that the process?
I wouldn't have the chemicals here myself, but I would be able to order the types of glass using those colors. In other words, those chemicals would have been used by somebody else. In other words, I buy them, you know, with those shades and mix them myself then. But so I don't actually have any chemicals here except the copper oxide and copper carbonate. But so I get the glass. The glass actually comes from the States. So I to the UK. So I get it from the UK. So yeah, the costs are becoming a bit of a factor now. But I really like that.
So it comes from the US through the UK. Is that what you said?
That's right. Yeah.
And is there any glass manufacturer in Ireland? No.
No, not for this particular glass. So that because I've been working with it for so long, I know how it behaves and how it changes. So that I suppose that the odd time I would use some Czech glass, but for the most part, it's this glass that comes from the US. So it's a special.
And what's the brand of it for anybody who's curious?
In the States, it's called Bullseye glass. Bullseye glass. Yeah.
Bullseye, right each time, is it?
Well, if it isn't, I can reuse it. That's the beauty of it, you see. So.
Oh yeah, I love that. And when we met, you talked about how you take these very detailed lab notes, almost like a laboratory. That comes from your background as a medical scientist. So how do you take notes at every process, like how long something takes and how it turns out and how much you add?
Yeah, well, Bullseye have a template, so I just have one for each one. So then I can record everything that happens, and then crucially at the end, what I don't like and what I might try again. I generally, if something doesn't work, I say maybe I'll try something. I write that on the page so that maybe in 5 years' time I'll look back on something that I might want to try and recreate. Oh, what happened that time? So I keep a record of every firing. So it's a bit laborious, but that
was there like one page for each piece, or would it be like
one page notes? No, one page for each firing. Sometimes I can
each firing.
Sometimes, like for example, last Saturday I took two. I was able to do two together in the kiln. So it's two, I suppose, two mediums or one big one. But so yeah, I record.
If you take that piece of sculpture behind you, Barbara, like how many pages of notes would you have for something like that? Give us an idea.
I have one page for that one.
Okay.
So that, but that one I couldn't put anything else in the kiln with that. That would have been quite a big mold when it was before it went in. So that's one. I did do a few small ones just before Christmas, which I put as a kind of an installation. I'm not finished polishing them yet, but as an installation, I brought them to the mines in the new year. So I've taken a few photographs of them. Again, this is my first time doing an installation at mines, but yeah, I might use some of those photographs shortly. But those small ones will obviously take less time. But when This one would have got a little bit of help towards the end. So I know somebody.
Yeah, I'd actually, do you ever think you'd love to work larger? Like if you had a commission, and would you be able to then, how would you do that? Would you have to like hire out or a larger kiln or go somewhere else to make it and have assistants?
I'd have to have
moving the
assistants.
pieces.
I'd have to have assistants or collaboration with
Okay.
somebody. The National Sculpture Factory, I've done some work down there as well, but for the most part, so far, I've just used my own little kiln. But yeah, it has been suggested to me that I should make one big piece, so that might happen sometime in the near future. But I have no urgency.
I'd say they'd be stunning. They'd be stunning as a, but then of course you'd have to find a very large rock to start with, and somebody would have to help you carry it. Everything would be more heavy. There's a physicality to working with glass. So all these like carrying of the, you know, the
materials, and
you know, you're limited by your own strength.
And last year I couldn't carry anything, so that it was it was a very quiet year for me. So,
and you have some very exciting projects coming up. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. I was invited to submit to Canvas International Art Fair in Venice, and it's opening on the 7th of April. So I've got 4 prints of my glass, of my photographs of my glass, printed in plexiglass. So it looks like glass. So you're looking at my images of my glass in what looks like glass. So 4 of those are going to be in, it's a little palazzo in Venice for, I think it's the 7th to the 23rd of April. So that's very exciting. Yeah, I was very honored to be.
Actually, I hadn't realized when we met, you told me about that, and I hadn't realized it was the photography that was going to that exhibition. That's amazing. And you're going to get them printed on plexiglass, and of course they are so luminous and light filled.
Yes. I actually have them. They have arrived. Yeah, I've got that done for those now, and I got them done in Dublin, so that they've arrived on Friday. So I'm very pleased.
Are you happy with them?
Yes, I am. I'm very happy with them.
And will you frame them then, or will they just be suspended? No,
they'll be suspended as if pictures of glass, but or pictures in glass, but it's plexiglass. So that.
And how large are they, Barbara?
2 would be A2, and 2 would be squares of the height of the A2s, so that they're they're not huge, but they're of 2 of each, 2 A2s and 2 squares, so that they should look well together, I think. But
oh, wonderful! And I hope you're going to go to Venice to see them.
Yes, I've never been to Venice, so it's an excuse to go there. So that's
oh wow! And I mean, the home of glass. You'll have lots to see there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what else have you got coming up?
I was selected for the International Biennale of Glass, and that's in Bulgaria in October. So that's going to be
congratulations.
That's going to be on there for 2 months, so that's great. That was really amazing as well to be selected for that. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Probably will.
And is it one piece or a couple of pieces? What are you exhibiting there?
One piece. I had just submitted one piece. Remember, I was saying earlier on, I could keep submitting and then saying, oh well, if it happens, it's great, and if it doesn't, not to worry. So this is one of the ones that it was selected. So that so they said they'd be.
That's fantastic. But, are you going to go to Bulgaria for the opening of the Biennale?
It's a possibility, all right, yes, because I've never been to Bulgaria either. So it's
that's really amazing. And do you go for submissions, do you set goals for yourself, Barbara, or are you more as it comes?
No, I more go with the flow, and if it's for you, it won't pass you by, kind of thing. So it's easygoing, I suppose, really is how you phrase it.
I'd love to know as well, is there any artist, you mentioned Agnes Martin, living or dead, that you'd love to meet, and what would you say to them if you could ask them a question?
Well, that's a very, very hard question. I suppose the most famous glass artist in the world is Dale Chihuly. He makes the most amazing sculptures, and he's world renowned. But I wouldn't mind to meet him. But that's he uses hot glass. Yeah, I don't know if you know that hot glass is blown glass, and cold glass is stained glass. What I do is called warm glass.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So warm glass.
So warm glass is what somewhere between the two of them?
Yes, it's because it comes out of the kiln and then it goes down. Whereas hot glass, you have to have very high heat. And stained glass is obviously cold glass. So this is called warm glass. So there is a guy in the UK who I think is a fantastic warm glass artist. And his name is Colin Reid. And I was very lucky to meet him. He came to lecture us in Cork, in Crawford. And so we had a great chat. So his work is fantastic. If you want to look it up as well, Colin Reid. So, and then we have Owen Turner here in Cork as well, another glass artist, or Roisin de Butler in Dublin. Her dad was very famous, Eamon de Butler, photographer.
And did you ever explore the other kinds of glass, like the stained glass or the blown glass? It was always warm.
Well, blown glass is very difficult because there are very few furnaces. Well, not in Cork anymore. But I did try stained glass, and I did try. I did stained glass courses twice before I started in Crawford. So I always like glass. I actually have some very old Cork glass that my grandmother gave me. So these would be wine glasses from when there was a Cork, when Cork glass were in operation a long time ago.
But like you started with stained glass, but was it always when you found warm glass? Was that like kind of your media? You kind of thought, oh, this is for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I haven't looked back.
I actually say I didn't know that. I've learned something new now. I didn't know there was we have different kinds of glass. And Barbara, if anyone, I'm obviously going to share photographs of Barbara's work and all of these links and people that are mentioned in the interview in the show notes. But for anybody listening, where can they find or see more of your work? Are you on Instagram?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Barbara Kenneally. I was on Instagram until last May under a different name, but I was hacked and it was very upsetting. Oh. Yeah, so I haven't really recovered from that hacking because I couldn't prove that I am me. So I had to start a new Instagram account. So that doesn't have a dot between the Barbara and the Kenneally. So my Instagram is at Barbara Kenneally and my website is barbarakenneally.com.
No, that's very upsetting being hacked like that.
Yeah,
my goodness.
Terrible. Yeah, it was terrible.
Have to start again.
Yes.
And have you, let me see what else I want to ask you. Oh yes, if you were starting again now, you've obviously, would you do anything differently to what you did in the past from your experience, even that experience with Instagram? Is there anything you would?
I suppose I
or would you do just as you did?
I make all the same mistakes again. I'd say no. It's hard to predict what's going to go right and what's going to go wrong. I can't say. But the hacking, well, I suppose yes. I thought that I was helping a friend, and I suppose if I thought harder at the time, I would have realised that she wouldn't have. When I didn't respond, she got a bit cross, and it wasn't her. It was somebody else. So they took over my account. So it was just.
Oh my goodness!
I've learned to be much more cautious about getting kind of panicking messages from what's supposed to be my friends. So, lesson learned, yeah.
Lesson learned. Oh, that's a unfortunate side of modern technology, isn't it? We ought to be so careful with passwords, and
it's like anything else. You don't realize how much you need it until it's gone. So that I learned a lot that day.
And what can you do to prevent that from happening? Is there anything you can do?
Yes, I suppose be more careful with the
strange
messages. Yeah.
Oh, fake messages. Wow, well, I didn't realize that. That's really sad to hear. But Barbara, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's absolutely fascinating, your journey from science to glass and photography, and wish you every success with the next steps in your creative journey and these upcoming exhibitions, which sound really, really exciting. I'd love to hear more about them. And for anyone listening, I'll share links and images of Barbara's beautiful work in the show notes. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode of The Warrior Artist. Make sure you subscribe. And if you have a few moments, I'd really appreciate if you could rate or review, as this helps others find me. I'd love any feedback or suggestions you have for future episodes. If you want to get in touch, you can contact me on Instagram at Éadaoin_Glynn. That's EADAOIN_Glynn, GLYNN, and through my website, éadaoinglynn.com. Wishing you all the best with your creative journey, and remember, you are a warrior artist.